Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. A brand new week as we kick off the final week of January with Lon Strickler and Strange Days. Lon from phantomsandmonsters.com. Dirty Filth is going to be here with another awesome cartoon. And the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you, including Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position, Robert Lamoth with a silver, Necessary Dialogue with a bronze medal tonight, Race Fan, how you doing, my friend? Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness. So thank you, Mel, for the lube. We greatly appreciate it. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, how are you? Mama Catherine, there she is. We love you, my dear. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm so excited to see you here tonight. I hope you enjoy tonight's show. Moving on, we have Thunderhead. How are you? Kathy Evans, nice to see you as we scroll on down in our roll call. There's Luscious Jules. How are you? And Jaquetta, what's going on? Carol Amario, how are you? Exquisite is here. Exquisite will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. United We Stand, what's going on? Lisa Smith, John Jackson, and Operation Shutdown. Good to have you all here tonight. Road Flare, nice to see you. And who is next on our list? It's Flubber Lane, everybody. Flubber Lane is here. Scrolling on down, we say hello next to Audacious Amber. Nice to have you here. And Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you. Jeff Steve Garvey will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Desert Rat, Skip to Malou. Nice to have you both here. Algaray over on Twitch, bench pressed 1,500 pounds once. No, I'm teasing. 550 pounds 49 times in 3 minutes. That's more realistic. Thank you, Algaray, for having some fun with us tonight and coming in off that hardcore bench press. Scrolling on down, Deer Hunter, or D. Henderson, how are you? And Nelson R., nice to see you. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to see you. Vamp Skyder, nice to have you here. Digger Dog, always a pleasure, my friend. And East Coast Turnaround over on X. You know, there was somebody the other day who said, I never mention the X crowd. Never mention the X crowd. I think I do all the time, to be honest. But that's just me. Fat Nuts, the Temu version of Grape Nuts. How you doing? Doc from Wyoming, nice to see you. And who is next here on our list? Well, it's John House. There you go. In John's house. John House in John's house. Walter Kochabinski, nice to see you. Matthew Goodka, always a pleasure. And Jessica McCreary and her gorgeous hair hanging on out with us. Thank you so much, Jessica. Appreciate you. Let's see. Scrolling on down. Jim Young on Facebook. Is there a radio station on iHeartRadio that carries it? I think so. No, not on iHeartRadio. The podcast is on iHeartRadio. The radio show is not, because they don't carry our show. Weird as that sounds, I know. I'm trying. Lord knows I'm trying. Panda on Fire, how are you? And who is next here? That's it. We're caught up. Let's go to the radio side. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us in. Why? Well, because we enjoy having you as an audience as we prepare for Lon Strickler and Strange Days. Lon from phantomsandmonsters.com. Get ready for him. Dirty Filth is here with a crazy cartoon. You won't be able to see that on the podcast, but you got to go to filthy.com and check it on out. Get his book while you're there, too. We are in roll call on our YouTube side, and I sped right through it. So literally right now, there is no roll call. So what are we going to tell you? Well, you could get your CaribouCon tickets for the Paracon here, September 18th through 20th. Go to cariboucon.com. That's CARIBOO con.com. Paramarv, how are you? Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. And if you're on YouTube, Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show for you tonight as our good friend Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com is going to join us here momentarily to talk about dragons. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off. And then we're going to get into the UFO report with Josh Rutledge and a little snippet that Mr. Beast, yeah, you know the famous YouTube channel, Mr. Beast, almost 500 million subscribers. Well, he made a little comment about UFOs that I think you'll find interesting that we will get to at that time. So you got to stay tuned and you got to check it on out. Lon Strickler is a very respected Fortean researcher, author, and the founder of phantomsandmonsters.com, one of the most widely read paranormal research websites in the world. With decades of experience investigating cryptids, UFOs, encounters, winged humanoids, alien abductions, and unexplained phenomena, Lon has become a trusted voice in the study of the unknown. His work focuses on eyewitness testimony, field investigation, and pattern recognition across global paranormal exports. In addition to managing phantomsandmonsters.com, Lon is an author and contributor to numerous books and research projects and is a frequent guest on radio shows just like this one. And known for his grounded investigative approach, he emphasizes documentation over speculation, giving experiencers a platform with it maintaining a critical eye on extraordinary claims. Once again, phantomsandmonsters.com is Lon's website. Lon Strickler, it is always a pleasure to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Well,
What have you been up to besides chasing monsters?
well, shoveling snow, I guess. That's what I've been doing lately. But I don't know. I just keeping my eye on what's going on. I mean, it's kind of been a slow start to the year, but um, I think things are going to pick up this year. I don't know. That's just speculation, but I just got a feeling things are going to be picking up. Don't know where, don't know how, don't know why, but just got that feeling.
Is it a little bit of a busy start to 2026?
No, it's been slow for me. I mean, I'm getting reports, but they're not necessarily real time reports. It's a lot of stuff people that decide they're going to talk about after so many years or so. But I'm keeping in contact like I always do with the folks here in Pennsylvania. So yeah, so we're just keeping our eyes open. Winter's strange around here. It's usually focused more on UFO sightings and non-cryptid activity. So yeah, we're just going to wait and see what happens as things start to warm up a little bit. So
Is there a reason why we don't get a lot of cryptid reports at this time of year? Is it due? The simple answer is it's due to the winter, it's due to the climate, the snow, everything like that. But is there more to the answer than just that?
yeah, I think there's a lot of things. People are busy this time of year, especially coming off the holidays and tax season here in the US, and I don't know how it is up there in Canada, but just everything in general, it just seems like to be a tougher time for people, and they're spending more of their focus on things at home and trying to keep around, stay alive for the best way they can. But yeah, I mean, in fact, I wrote something the other day about there was a question posed by Chad Lewis where he asked folks about the paranormal in general. It just seems like he said he thinks it's waning a bit. I don't know about that. That may very well be true, but I just think, especially towards the end of one year and beginning the other, things just kind of slow back. Why that is, I just think it's a lot of different things crescendoing at one time.
Do you think the fad of the paranormal and cryptid research is waning at all? Do you
I
think
don't.
it is dying in popularity?
No, I don't. I think it actually. I think, and we are getting a lot of younger people getting involved with it. I get questioned all the time about people getting or themselves getting into paranormal research or investigations, and they're younger and younger all the time. So no, I don't think that's the case. I think the media attention to the unexplained has kind of dipped off a bit. But I think that's just a matter of different type of programming that's going to be developed, which I think it is. I think it's going to be more of a documentary type thing as opposed to you watching a video or something where they're just talking to you and you're not involved with it. I think there's going to be more and more witness participation and a lot less theory. I think people are demanding uh, more evidence and trying to stay away from speculation as much as possible. And I think that's the overall feeling with most investigators that they're striving to put cases and reports out there that do have some evidence, though it's just not always that easy to do. But I think for a while that uh, the information kind of seemed a bit extravagant, maybe embellished. That's being presented to people, and I think people kind of got a little turned off by that. But since I'm involved now with a lot of the entertainment behind it and the media, and I'm going to be as well. But I think the whole scope of it's changing. It's going to change. And, we're not just looking here in the United States, we're looking in other places as well. And people just seem to be more focused in actual evidence.
Here's one thing that I have heard recently, and recently is in the last few weeks. And I'm curious to get your opinion on this because I brought this up on the show a couple of times, really, really quietly. I don't know if anybody caught on with it or not, but I've been talking to a few paranormal investigators recently who say it's getting harder and harder to get into locations, especially museums and bars, and, haunted bars and restaurants and so on and so forth. And the reason may not be what you think it is. It's not because they're shutting off the paranormal. It's because too many of these newer investigators who have a social media following on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok are ruining these businesses for clicks. And what I mean by that, Lon, is they're actually going into these places claiming to be paranormal investigators, filming it all, and then talking about the clickbait word demons. That
Mhm.
all of these places have demonic forces going on and demonic entities. And these places of business are saying, hold on a second here. You know, we got to shut this down. We have a business to run here. If you're going to be scaring people off from my location because you want to make the demon threat, well, then I got to shut down all paranormal investigation here because I can't afford to keep the doors open for your clickbait. Have you heard about this going on?
Yeah, this has been going on for a bit now. I've heard the complaints too on both sides, and a lot of businesses that really catered to having investigations done at their locations are starting to realize they're suffering from it. And when they go, say they'll go to YouTube and they'll watch something where they had people come in there, and then they watch what they said. I mean, most of the time they're saying things that are just not helping the business whatsoever, even though they promised to not talk about certain subjects. But that is a complaint. I mean, you're right. That's something that we've been hearing about a lot, and I've had a lot of people ask me about it, about locations being cut off to investigators. And uh, honestly, I have had more requests from businesses and locations to offer or to provide credentials or my knowledge of the investigators themselves so they can check up on them before they go into somewhere. They're looking for references, and they're just not letting anybody come in there anymore. So,
But how do you do it? How
well,
do you do it? I mean, no offense to ghost hunters and Zach Bagans or anybody like that. Okay. But when you have, you know, all of these television shows talking about demons, everything is a demon. The,
yeah.
the cameraman coughs in the background. That's a demon. Everything is a demon. And I can't imagine being, a location that all of a sudden has to deal with this because it's starting to turn away those clientele. I don't want to be in a place where demonic forces are. I don't want to be doing that, and that right there can ruin a location, especially what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of these museums, Lon, they're nonprofit. They don't get government support like Alcatraz or Gettysburg or anything like that. They have to, wiggle every dollar they can in order to keep the history afloat.
Hmm.
And it's not that they're grifting on history or anything like that, but we want these places alive, pun intended. We want them to be there another 100, 200 years down the road. So we don't forget our history. And yet when you have these clickbait channels going up there and causing and stirring up an experience that didn't happen, because they don't know the paranormal. The only thing they know about the paranormal is that anybody could do this.
Mhm.
It really is frightening, and I can see where it's going to get harder and harder to get places to investigate.
Well, it has been going on for a while, and that's why people ask for references. I mean, they want to know who they are. People that are coming into a private business or a public place like a museum, and they want to know that. They want to know what they're going to do. They want to know what consequences they may be facing. That's been going on in Gettysburg, actually. I mean, they do not promote people coming in there, and they will not let people in there with equipment like they used to. They just find it to be a nuisance, and honestly, I can't blame them, because people that are working as rangers or doing tours and stuff are just getting really tired of the ghost references and questions about paranormal activity. They're there to talk about the history, to give the facts, and that's it. And they just kind of shut down from all that other stuff now. And I expect that's going to continue.
Is it the fault of the museums doing that, or is it the fault of a sinful few who have pushed it too far?
I would say both. I mean, they kind of brought it on themselves, actually, the businesses and these places that had offered it before. But the bottom line turned out that it wasn't helping, and it was hindering what they were trying to do. And yeah, I think there's fault on both sides. I've got, and I look, there's a lot of people, especially early on, that were figured, well, there are people getting into the paranormal, and we're going to go get a YouTube channel and start it up and start doing investigations on the channel and this and that. And yeah, that's fine. But, they're not doing it for the sake of real investigation. I've seen that a lot. Sure, there are people that do. But for the most part, there are a lot of them out there just trying to get, like you said, clickbait. And yeah, it has hurt the overall feeling about paranormal investigation. It hasn't helped whatsoever, I don't believe.
How would you fix it?
Well, honestly, there's no magic, resolution to it. I mean, I guess that, doing what they're doing now is try to dissuade people from being involved in that type of activity. Is probably one of the things that's going to bring it down. Have more experienced people looking into it and getting involved. I know several people who do this for a living, basically, but they're experienced folks. I mean, and they do the correct investigations, the research and such.
Right.
But they're not putting it out on YouTube or another social media just to get clicks. Sure, they use social media, but they don't use it to a degree that some other folks do just to make money off of it. And I'm kind of torn between that, be honest with you, but I don't get involved with groups now that are just out there to be out there. I mean, just to make a name for themselves. I used to, but I stay away from that now.
Well, I mean, I think, though, it'll be a good slap to the hand of the paranormal community, to be blunt. I know our good friend Merle on this show. He has a location in Merritt, British Columbia, where it's called the Bailey House. Very haunted place. And on their stairwell going down into the basement, there was a chalk drawing of an angel and a devil, and there was a saying on there. One paranormal team went in there one day, and they were about defusing haunted areas and sending the spirits home.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these museums, they don't do their homework on these groups.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to come in and investigate? Good, good. Come on in. Doors open. Do what you want. Well, these people, in their divine wisdom, and nobody knew in the museum how long that chalk drawing was there. It just showed up one day. It was just there. And it was very odd because nobody in the museum drew it. They didn't see anybody draw it. It just happened. Much like, in a different scenario, Robert the doll never had a toy with him, but one day a little lion, just little lion stuff, he just ended up in his curio cabinet. Nobody knows how it got there. Well, same thing with this. So this paranormal group decides that in their infinite wisdom, in order to calm the angry spirits down and the demonic forces, that they are going to paint over it. So without telling anybody at the museum, they painted over it. And the museum flipped their lid. They literally flipped their lid. They're like, why would you think this is okay to desecrate something in a museum? They're not, obviously that group is no longer allowed there, but that's just what we're dealing with because there are no rules, there are no regulations, there's no guidebook to what we have to do. And that's what gives this entire field a major black eye. Now, if people are going on TikTok about demons this, demons that, demons everywhere, we're just putting more fuel in the fire for these locations to shut things down.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. People just, people are people, and they do things they shouldn't do, and they're only thinking about their bottom line as opposed to the people who are kind enough to let them come there and work at the location. But then they do something really stupid, and they just make it worse for everybody else. And that's why I don't go into places that normally have investigations done. I do a lot. I do mostly private stuff, or if I'm on a battlefield, I don't take a crowd of people with me, and I don't bring equipment on there with me. And I kind of do it the old fashioned way. But yeah, I mean, social media, it was kind of a two-edged sword because it became fashionable to do that, and more people got involved with it. And then you started hearing horror stories, just like what you said. And yeah, it has really made it bad for others. And I just think a lot of places, even places I know around here who used to have people come in a lot, just don't do it anymore. And,
well, we got about just over a minute and a half to go before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. That's why, just as an example, when I was involved in our local museum, if paranormal teams wanted to come in, there was a couple things we did. And number one was you have to have a tour guide with you. Somebody who knows. They have to come with you. You cannot have the facility to yourself. There is somebody coming with you. So in case you decide to do something stupid, like crossover spirits or try and desecrate the museum, it's all over. You're done. No refunds. Go home. Right? And that's literally the way that it has to be. So, I mean, that to me, that is on the museums for taking responsibility as well.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep yourself safe. And the fact that they had to chaperone somebody that comes in there, I mean, they're going to have to accept that because, yeah, I find that to be reasonable, actually. I wouldn't really want to be involved in an investigation, say in a museum, where I'm got free run of the place, and anything shows up missing or anything is amiss, that you're going to get blamed with it. So I'm definitely going to want somebody from the museum or the location there with us as we do this. Yeah, I wouldn't even think about doing that.
Well, you know what? As I always say about our paranormal friends out there, what's the quickest way to confuse a paranormal investigator? Ask what they do with their evidence. Lon Strickler, phantomsandmonsters.com, author, researcher, a gentleman who always has his hair combed just perfectly. We'll take up dragons next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, Lon, we're clear.
Okay.
Hello, Dirty.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lon.
Hey, what's up?
I hope you guys are having a good night. I'm having a wonderful night.
Great.
Mortal Clown, how are you tonight in the chat room? Nice to see you. You know, you're allowed to come in more than just when Lon is here. We do like you around here. Yeah, we do.
I didn't tell him to say that.
I'm just happy to be here tonight. Erica Stover, how are you? Thank you. First off, welcome to SOR Chat, Georgie Blackcat. And thank you for the special Canadian super chat there from one fellow Canuck to another. I appreciate you. Little Mikey, another Canadian super chat. Look at that. My fellow Canadians are coming through.
Woo.
Give me 1 second. My little dog will not stop barking the last 10, 15 minutes. Hold on.
Yeah, there's a Bigfoot outside. We're just going to hear Dave screaming for help. Sorry, Dave, we can't help you. We're all far away. It's going to grab him and tickle his feet. Ooh, hold on a second here. I went to a birthday party on the weekend, Lon, and I sold a card. I sold a book.
Oh, did you?
It was a good time. There was free candy and everything. Because I have if anybody's wondering, I have 2 books out, and I just released my second one recently. And the coolest part is, there's a picture of Lon Strickler in the book.
Yes, it is.
There he is, running away from a dastardly Mothman trying to steal his beard. Look at that, Dave.
Uh-huh. Lon, you
He's
would
even
never
got his-
allow that to happen.
He's got his 14 shirt on as well.
Look at that idiot Mothman with a razor blade and everything. Holy cow.
They're out of control in Chicago, Dave.
Holy
Those
cow.
Mothman.
That's just pure danger right there. Pure danger. Benno from Oz, how you doing? Mortal Clown at 50 degrees. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, just so you know. Oh, what I would do for 50 degrees right now.
And seeing grass?
I actually saw my grass the other day. Our snow is melted and blown away. But it's coming
Well,
back.
aren't you lucky?
We got some snow today. And a lot of black ice.
Ooh, that's always
Black
fun.
ice. Hello, Dirty.
Hello, Dave. I have some Earl Grey for my tea tonight.
Oh, very
Tea,
nice.
Earl Grey hot, the Picard special.
Very nice. The Ferret, how you doing? 3 cheese 42. What kind of 3 cheeses are you? I'm wearing a rainbow thong and flip-flops. I'm actually jealous of you right now. Welcome to SOR chat, by the way.
You can get underwear with Dave's face on it.
You sure can. You sure can. Earl Grey is no longer a ufologist because he left this world last year. God bless him. He was a good one. Such a good dude.
Yeah, he was.
I lived on Vancouver Island for 2 years. I hated every moment of it. One of the most beautiful places I ever lived. But I felt so stuck there. I hated it. I'll type in the fan mail address, Desert Rat, in the chat room here. We are into the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for joining us as we get ready for Lon Strickler Strange Days, where we get into the world of dragons. Yes, before we bring Lon back in, reminder to all of you, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. We got a great website at spacedoutradio.com, including shopping at our store where we do not have ugly swag. On X, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Lon Strickler, Strange Days from phantomsandmonsters.com. He joins us near the end of each month to go over the month that was in the world of monsters. And now we're going to get into a topic we haven't really touched on before. Well, we have, just very briefly. Dragons. You can find all of Lon's books on his website, phantomsandmonsters.com, or on Amazon. Mr. Lon, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Dave.
Tell us about dragons. Are they real?
Well, some of the reports I have received over time would make you think they actually are. People are seeing something out there now. And, it's just what you would imagine, a huge creature flying around with bat-like wings a huge animal, people feeling the heat coming off the animal as well. And weird stuff like that. Is it a tulpa? Is it a thought form? Is it something that's moving between realities, between dimensions? I don't know. But we've had a few reports over the time. But this report that I received from Richard Freeman about a year ago concerning these sightings outside of Surrey, which is south of London, are intriguing. There's a lot of phenomena going on as well with it. But when I was on the show last time, I told you I would go ahead and bring it the next time I came on. So I got a hold of Richard and asked him to give me some updates. And there's a few updates. So it's, I sent you everything that I have. So if you want to read it, we can go from there and I can tell you what's been going on. But it is intriguing. It really is. And, people that don't know Richard Freeman, he's probably one of the most renowned cryptozoologists in Great Britain, let alone the world. I mean, he's done a lot of expeditions all over the world as well. And, he's no nonsense, but he knows about cryptids and he definitely knows about the paranormal. So take it for what you want, but I find what he's been telling me is very intriguing.
All right, well, let's get to a story here. I'm just going to read what you sent me.
Okay.
In late December 2023, multiple witnesses reported seeing large bat-winged dragon-like entities over the ruins of Waverley Abbey in Surrey, England. Investigated by British cryptozoologist Richard Freeman, the case presents a rare convergence of mass eyewitness testimony, anomalous lights, and poltergeist-like effects, suggesting a possible new Fortean window area rather than an isolated sighting. Before we move on, Lon, what it would be... what do you mean by a new Fortean window area?
Well, it's a location that is not really well known for, in this case, an abbey, where sure you're going to have some paranormal activity that's involves, you know, apparitions and maybe energies, but as far as cryptid activity or something that's not as known as to come forward in an area, it's a question. It's an enigma. We don't know if it's if there's a rift opening up, or if this, you know, the mechanism for them showing up. So that's what he means by that.
All right. Well, let's continue on here. In January 2025, you received, Lon, an email from your friend and colleague, Richard Freeman. Richard is also the zoological director of the Center of Fortean Zoology. He forwarded the following article about his ongoing investigation of a mass sighting of dragons in England. Here it goes. Hi, Lon. That's you, Lon. You might be interested in this case for phantomsandmonsters.com. It involves a mass witness who sighted dragons in England a little over a year ago. It's an ongoing investigation, and I'll be returning to the area. All the best, Rich. So the dragon is the great granddaddy of all monsters. Forget about demons, vampires, and zombies. The dragon predates all of these and other monsters. The earliest dragon legends have been traced back to South Africa, and to date, some 75,000 years ago. Wow, I never knew that. The most powerful, ancient, and widespread monster appears in every culture and country on Earth. Great Britain alone has over 100 dragon legends. Many UK dragon stories feature the beast appearing out of the blue, terrorizing an area, then simply vanishing as mysteriously as it appeared. There is no hero or damsel in distress. The dragons of Wormingford in Suffolk, Anwick, Lincolnshire, and Cawthorne, Yorkshire, are examples of these. They sound remarkably like modern accounts of mysterious animals that turn up, scare witnesses, and then vanish again, such as the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which records sightings of dragons. Over the years, many theories of what lies behind the dragon's lore have been offered. The fossil bones of dinosaurs and other giant extinct animals, meetings with huge crocodiles and pythons, or a metaphor for energies running through the earth. None of them really cut the mustard as explanations for the dragon phenomena. Most people, at least in the West, think of the dragon as folkloric creatures with no basis in reality. Yet people all over the world claim to have encountered dragons in the modern age. I have been collecting these accounts for some time. Here are just a few. Before we get into those, I want to get you to break that down, Lon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what do you want to know specifically?
No, just your thoughts on the fact that this is a creature that has been seen for millennia around the world and recorded by people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get reports a lot. I mean, I have noted some at the end of what I sent you. I've had several reported. I had 2 cases that were reported in New Jersey. One in it's the Central Valley of California, and even one in Chicago, actually. So people swear that's what they're seeing. And of course, these reports have been going on for such a long time. I mean, you know, it's at the point now where you really don't know if it's part of the lore or people are actually seeing something. But as you go forward in this, reading this report, you'll see that there's more to it. So that's why he got me involved with this. So, but you'll see.
All right, let's continue on. In Namibia, there's a tradition of a giant winged serpent that has a glowing gem in its horned head. One of the most dramatic sightings was in 1978 when a French farmer was tending his cattle in the Caris region and saw a bright white light heading straight toward him. Then afterward, he heard a massive thud, and he heard one of his cattle cry out in pain. As he rushed to check on what attacked the cow, he saw a dragon. He told local police, "I saw what looked like, as the best matching description I can give you is that it looked like a dragon. It had white, bright lights on its head, which were blinding me. The color of it was brown and yellow. It had green eyes. There was a tar-like smell coming from it, and it had smoke coming out of its nostrils." Viking folklore is full of dragon legends, so the following account should come as no surprise. In 2010, the Icelandic volcano, or Icelandic volcano, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, it erupted, spewing out titanic clouds of ash into the atmosphere and grounding planes for weeks. One local man watched the eruption, saw something flying about the volcano. He realized what he saw must have been huge due to the great distance he was observing it from. At first, he thought it was just a plane until he saw the wings flapping. In an email to Lars Thomsen, the Danish biologist and cryptozoologist, he said the following: "As I see it, there are only two possible explanations. Either I was imagining the whole thing, or what I saw was in fact a dragon. I feel that it's very hard to believe, but then again, I don't think I could imagine something like that." In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Gunung Kansing, a mountain in the province of Lampung, Western Java, was thought to be the lair of a dragon the locals called ular naga, or dragon snake. It was described as resembling a giant snake with a horse-like head and bat wings. The monster terrorized Persewaran village for years. It stole and ate children, often attacking in broad daylight. The beast would snatch the children whilst their parents were busy in the fields. One village elder, Darga, said that the dragon was seen almost daily. In the end, the villagers blocked up the entrance to the cave where they thought the creature lurked. After that, the killing stopped. But the people were so scared that they mostly abandoned their homes and moved to other villages. That's creepy, Lon. That is scary.
Yeah, I've heard several accounts like that, mostly in areas like Indonesia and in some parts of Africa.
See, I have heard reports of, like, north of me here in British Columbia, almost by the BC-Alaska border, of pterodactyls taking people. There's one Indian reservation up there that believes a lot of their people have been taken as food for these, 10, 12-foot pterodactyl creatures that are flying around. Jonathan Whitcomb calls them roping. I've heard of that, but I hadn't heard like these dragons still taking people.
Yeah. Every once in a while, somebody or an investigator or a researcher will go into an isolated area where people start talking about these creatures that they've been dealing with for generations. And, they report it to the investigator, though, they're not always believed, but sometimes something will come up that just seems that maybe it's a nugget of information that may very well be true. When you talked about the description of the dragon with the light on its head, that's very similar to what people saw in Van Meter, Iowa, back in the turn of the century, which was a pterosaur-like creature that had a bright light in the middle of its forehead.
Right.
So, could that be considered? Could that possibly be something that people were seeing? I don't know, but we do get a lot of pterosaur reports or creatures that resemble what science believes to be pterosaurs or pterodons. So, they are reported.
Well, let's just continue with this story. Okay. And it's going to make me refresh 1 second here, my friend. Of course. While we're waiting for this, here we go. We got it. We got it. Yeah, I'm not pronouncing that volcano in Iceland.
No, I don't pronounce anything from Iceland.
Yeah. All right. Here comes the next part of the story here. And that is the late great Fortean researcher Linda Godfrey, who is a good friend of this show, was contacted by witnesses who claimed to have seen dragons in Wisconsin in 2007. One young man she calls Jim, a pseudonym, told her that on October 7th of that year in Oconto Falls, he and some friends had attended a concert. They were lying on top of their vans and on the grass looking up at the sky when they saw something strange. A ball of orange and blue fire shot across the sky, followed by something even weirder. Jim said, "We knew it had to be a dragon because how else would you describe something flying over that was almost silent, larger than a plane, had a tail, bat-like wings, a long neck, and a narrow, pointed head and scales. I remember noticing the scales because they dimly reflected the streetlights below. We thought we were all seeing things, but 5 minutes later, it flew over again, this time in the opposite direction." Linda later contacted Jim's mother, whom she referred to as Janet. Jim had phoned his mother for a lift and told her what he had seen. Janet thought her son was joking and went to pick him up. She noticed a shadow crossing a parking lot, then saw a fireball, blue with orange around it, shooting from east to west in the sky. Jim told her that he and his friends had seen the same thing before the dragon had arrived. Janet then drove her son home. Linda also spoke to Jim's sister, who we called Jill. Jim had talked her into staying up. The pair lay on a trampoline in their backyard looking at the sky. They then saw a fireball shooting east to west, followed quickly by one moving west to east. They then heard a loud screech that caused all the local dogs to bark. Then the dragon returned. The creature was flying only about 20 feet above their two-story house. After looking at pictures of pterosaurs, they saw that the wing structure was very different. The family also saw smaller dragons that they took to be younger of the larger ones. The smaller creatures seemed to be playing by circling each other, Jill said. I don't care what scientists say, it's not a pterodactyl. I could see it had pearly, pale scales, and the fireball came from its mouth. They were beautiful and flew gracefully. I could see they had 4 legs. They were tucked up underneath like when a bird flies. This case is interesting because the creature is described as a dragon with 4 legs and 2 wings. However, most screen depictions of dragons these days make the mistake of only giving them 2 legs, technically making them wyverns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here, it seems the media did not influence the witnesses. These are just a few of the many stories I have collected. They may seem absurd, rather, but they are more ridiculous than any. Are they any more ridiculous than any other Fortean phenomena, such as encounters with aliens and spaceships, falls of fish, or spirits of the dead? But what about Great Britain? Well, on December 27th, 2023, multiple witnesses observed dragons at Waverley Abbey near Farnham, Surrey, and I am conducting an ongoing investigation into the case. Let's pause there for a second, because this case that Linda Godfrey, the late Linda Godfrey, had investigated, if it happened at a concert, now I'm not saying these kids were stoned or intoxicated or what have you, but there should have been a lot more eyewitness sightings if this was going on, don't you think?
Well, Linda turned me on to that case not long after it occurred, and I was able to talk to the mother. And she described exactly what was that Richard had quoted from Linda. I tend to believe they saw something. I don't necessarily know what it was, but the fact that they actually said that it had 4 appendages really fascinated me. Because basically a wyvern is has 2 legs and no arms or anything else. I mean, they have the wings and that's all. But it's bizarre. But I tended to give her the benefit of the doubt. Now, I wasn't able to talk to her son or anybody else, but they saw something. And look, the upper Midwest, as you know, is rife with large bird sightings, let alone Mothman and pterosaurs and other stuff. So I tend to believe a good bit of what they believe they saw or what they did see. As far as the flames and stuff, I don't know. It's an interesting case. It really is.
Let's continue on here. We got about 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break, Lon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we go back to England here. And this is just absolutely fascinating, because Richard Freeman comes out and says, there are just a few too many stories I have collected. They may seem absurd, but how ridiculous are they? And then he goes into this case, December 27, 2023 at Waverley Abbey. John Downs first alerted me to the case. A group of 10 people, ghost hunters from the South Coast Ghost Group, had been at the Abbey conducting ghost research that evening when they saw strange flying creatures. The Abbey itself was founded in 1128 by Bishop William Gifford and was a functioning Cistercian abbey.
Cistercian, yeah.
Until it fell victim to Henry VIII's dissolution in 1536. That damn Henry VIII. Wow. He says, I arranged to interview one of the witnesses at the site itself, and together with fellow Fortean Jackie Tonks traveled to Surrey. The witness was a Polish lady named Dora. She and her mother met us at the Abbey, and we interviewed her. The group had been using, here we go. The group had been using a Ouija board in the cloister of the Abbey at about 9 p.m. The planchette spelled out the name Zozo. Oh, yeah, here we go. For those not in the know, Zozo, more than just Jimmy Page, was a supposed demonic entity that American Darren Evans claimed to have contacted in 2009. Darren subsequently claimed that the entity was responsible for all kinds of havoc in his life. He recorded the story on True Ghost Tales website. Zozo became a sort of an internet meme for a while and even had a horror film made about it. The name first appeared in an 1816 book, The Infernal Dictionary by Jacques-Auguste Simon Colin de Plancy. It was one of the 3 entities supposed to have possessed a girl. However, the author rejects the story as false because the girl had previously been punished for false claims of demonic possession. As the modern story can be traced back to one man, Darren Evans, the story is probably a hoax, and Zozo has no more reality than the Slender Man, the Rake, or the Dybbuk box. After ending the Ouija session, the group tried table turning on a portable table with fold-up legs. While their hands were on the table, it shook violently, and the legs snapped shut. The group then moved over to a large yew tree in the grounds of the Abbey. Now it was about 10 p.m. Glancing over some woods around 200 meters or 650 feet away, Dora saw a giant flying creature emerge, bank around in the air, then dive back into the woods. Its wings were bat-like and about 10 meters or 33 feet across and measured against the trees. None of the others saw this. Then another smaller creature flew into view, much closer. Dora said it was man-sized, about 6 feet long, with a 10-foot wingspan. Again, the wings were bat-like. It seemed to be darker brown in color. The creature landed on the ruins of the Abbey at the south transept. She did not get a look at the head of the beast, but saw a long tail that ended in an arrowhead point. The beast then flew off. The geese in the nearby river were screaming at the time. She produced a rough sketch of what she saw. Dora admitted to being very frightened at the time. She told me, I did not believe in dragons before, but now I certainly do. She was still frightened when Jackie and I spoke with her, thinking that the entities were demonic. I explained to her that dragons were thousands of years older than the Christians, or indeed any conceptions of demons. We will get to the rest of this story. Lon Strickler, Strange Days, here on Spaced Out Radio, coming up. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Lon, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to turn things over to the dirty one, so that way he can show us his newest cartoon.
Yes.
Hello,
cartoons
dirty.
About. Hello, Dave. Hello, Lon. Dave's got to go let the dog out so he can bark at the Bigfoot.
Hey, Dirty, do me if you want me to, or if you have a button or a graphic that you want to sell the book, send it to me, and I'll put it on the website with the link. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Lon. Yeah,
No
I can
problem.
do that. Okay. Well, after I do my third book here, I'm going to be doing like a little like zine type thing, because it's much easier to show off my drawings in something I can make in about 3 months as opposed to a year. But if you want, I'll just I'll do the same thing. I'll put an advertisement in there for you, because
Yeah,
I always like your stuff. And
I mean, no charge. It's so yeah, I can put it up there. Maybe you'll sell some books.
cool. Oh, I really appreciate that, Lon. If I was here,
No
I'd give you a
problem.
great big hug.
Okay.
I went to my friend's birthday party on the weekend and sold a book there and drew a bunch of cartoons for people, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Cool.
And,
I'll be right back.
okay, don't worry. I've got everything under control, Lon.
Okay, cool.
Now you guys are stuck with me for 4.5 minutes here. But I'd like to show everybody in my new book, I have a picture of boobies. I'll show you guys. Here we go. Here comes the boobies. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Can't show that off for too long. People will get excited there. Well, anyways, so here's the cartoon I did tonight. It's the Nightcrawler and the Goblin. And they were watching the local hockey game today. And so the local team won. Hooray. Go local team. Hello, lovely Julie. But I was actually looking for another drawing I had here, but I have a mountain of drawings. I firmly believe that's how I'm going to die. I'm going to die under a collapsation of albums and books and my drawings. And then just my foot will be sticking out, and then the gremlin and gargoyle will eat my rotten foot after a couple days. Because they're cats, right? They don't care.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, look at this. Hello, father. Let me eat your foot. Yum, 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 yum. Oh, hey, also, by the way, look at I got a little Nightcrawler flying a UFO.
Cool.
Yes. My friend, my pal Barb gave me some buttons. She works at a school, and they threw out a whole bunch of, like random buttons that you can make stuff with. And she's like, "Oh, my buddy Klaus will love those." So here I am now with 10,000 buttons to work with. I actually gave some away on my show a couple Saturdays ago. If you got nothing to do on a Saturday, or if you're just interested in watching me draw cartoons, at 3 p.m. Mountain, which is 2 o'clock Pacific, and I don't know, 3 weeks from tomorrow on the East Coast, basically, I draw cartoons on Spaced Out Radio. Anyways, I drew a whole bunch of them, and I sent one I just did like a dice roll off to see if someone would win the drawing I did that night, and the pin, or the button, and it took forever to get the thing there.
Mm-hmm.
Canada Post is just brutal. But yeah, because you have to fill out extra. You got to use the like stupid QR code thing, and I'm not the most technologically advanced guy, so I was struggling with it and fighting with it, but I did get it to work. So Anyways, I'm rambling away here. And then after this, I'm going to work on my second little comic that I put together too. I've got a lot of stuff going on here, Lon. It's terrible. I've got a problem. It's like, oh, I'll start drawing this. Ooh, I'll start drawing that. Ooh, I'll start drawing this. It's like my stack of books that I think I'm going to read one day. That's never going to get smaller.
Yeah, I've got that same problem. I mean, it's ridiculous. I've actually started giving books away on the on some of my podcasts. So yeah, it's ridiculous. I've had all these books, when I was interviewing people and such, they would send me a book and after a time I had about 12 huge boxfuls of books. So, yeah.
Have a good night, gentlemen. I shall see you in the future.
Thank you,
Take care.
Dirty One. You can
Good
go
night,
to Dirty
Dave.
Filth, his website, filthy.com, FYLTHY.com. Quickly here, Mr. Colley, how you doing? Gorgeous Larry, nice to see you. And who else has jumped in here? Chris Jarvis. Wow, it's been a while. How you doing? And I am leading up the questions. Marmar Rio, welcome to SOR chat. Protect Lon at all costs. That's why he has the beard of strength right there. Thank you tonight to our super chatters, Mikey and Georgie. Thank you very much. We appreciate your love and support. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. And here we go. We are into hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Before we get to Lon Strickler talking dragons tonight, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hurry-o-late. Hurry-o-late is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in our good friend Lon Strickler, his website, phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon joins us each and every month for a segment we call Strange Days. And you can find all of Lon's books on his website or on Amazon. Lon, I'm enjoying this conversation about dragons. Thank you for that.
No problem. No problem.
You ready to continue?
Yes, sir.
All right. So right before the break, we were talking about this place in England where a ghost hunting team was looking for ghosts, tried Ouija boards, tried table tipping, and ended up with dragons. Yeah, dragons flying in the sky. Shouldn't have happened, should probably not exist, but they're reporting on what they were seeing. So this lady who goes by Dora was telling the story to some investigators there, including Richard Freeman, who were looking into this Fortean case. And this is where we continue. So Dora was still frightened when Jackie and Richard spoke with her, thinking that the entities were demonic. I, being Richard, explained to her that the dragons were thousands of years older than the Christians or indeed any concept of demons. A few days later, I arranged to speak with some of the other witnesses on a Zoom call. Darren Graham said the group met up at about 7 p.m. to go on a ghost hunting trip to the Abbey. On the way in from the car park, he saw 2 white lights in the sky that shot away fast. In the cloisters, he was using a 3-field meter, MK3, to detect static fields. The meter was, in his words, going mad. Then they went to another part of the Abbey. Later, during the Ouija board session, one guy thought his late mother was trying to contact him, though Darren was pretty skeptical on this. Another member, Luke Sturgis, caught a glimpse of two dark things swooping around the sky. He also felt that this thing coming through the board was demonic and not the other member's mother. During the table tipping, the table was violently thrown about, and they all felt uneasy. The group moved to the yew tree and tried the board again. A member, Nigel, wanted to try the board again under the tree. The geese started making noise. Then another member cried, "Look at that!" About 100 feet away above the ruins and flying towards them was a big bat-like creature. Darren said it was long and back. It was long and back and made a fruit bat look tiny. Its body was about 6 feet long, and he estimated the wings to be about 8 feet across. As it drew closer, it turned its long head to look at them, then turned on its axis and flew back the way it came. Nigel said Zozo was on the board when the creature appeared, though I'm not inclined to give this any relevance to what was being seen. Darren said the wings were bat-like and were adamant that the thing was not a goose, swan, heron, or cormorant. He thought that he saw legs under the body, but could not be sure. He did not notice eyes, and as the creature did not open its mouth, he saw no teeth. Nobody wanted to investigate any closer. He said it was useless to try and use his camera as it was too dark, he said. I've thought of every other option. It's not something normal that would have been around at night. So I'm going to stop right there for a second, Lon, because there's some interesting concepts here. Number one, you have a team, a ghost hunting team, that is used to investigation. They have a protocol of what they do during an investigation. And I find that very interesting that, they were looking for solid answers. They were looking to try and debunk any other thoughts outside of a dragon. Your thoughts?
Well, I think they went about the right way. I did want to mention about Darren Evans. I had interviewed him right after he and Rosemary Ellen Golly had published his book. And about Zozo and some of the things that he went through with his life and such. But I have had references to Zozo ever since I started investigating. I mean, that's something that comes up once in a while. People that do Ouija board sessions, every once in a while, the name Zozo is spelled out with the planchette and the board. I don't understand it. Now, I had an encounter, a strange incident with a Ouija board when I was younger. So,
Yes.
It doesn't really surprise me. Is this Zozo? It's supposedly a summoning type being. In other words, it can open up a rift for either creatures or spirits to move in and out. Some people believe it's the actual reason why the Ouija board is what it is. I mean, that's the spirit that is summoned, or the creature or the entity that's summoned when people are using the Ouija board. I don't know if that's true or not. And but there's something to this. Now, the fact that it suddenly came up when they were doing this, and then this creature showed up, that's intriguing. It's very intriguing. I mean, to the point where Richard was fascinated by it, and the fact that he was interested really raised the alarm on me. So, yeah, I think this may have been a summoned being. I'm not necessarily saying it was flesh and blood or actual corporeal being, but the fact that it did show up the way it did make sounds. It was seen by more than one person. I think there's something to this.
I agree with you on that, but I'm looking at a lot of coincidence here. Do
Mhm.
you think that the usage of the Ouija board in a religious abbey caused some sort of detrimental effect to what these people were experiencing?
It may have the fact that it was a Cistercian abbey, first of all, is something that I'm familiar with because I have done investigations throughout Great Britain, and there's a lot of strange activity associated with Cistercian abbeys or churches. Of course, the Cistercians came over from France when William the Conqueror defeated the Saxons, and they actually set up everything. They're the monks you see that wear the all white,
Right.
and there's a lot of stuff that's associated with them, let alone paranormal activity. So the fact that it was a Cistercian abbey is kind of intriguing as well. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. Taking a Ouija board and investigating in an old abbey, the ruins of an old abbey, I don't know if it has any religious or any type of paranormal connotation at all, but it's fascinating.
I find that very, very interesting to see how it actually played out.
Yeah.
I really find it interesting. The fact that, Zozo kept popping up.
Yeah.
The most of us, if you're a music fan, learned of Zozo due to Jimi Hendrix, not Jimi Hendrix, pardon me, Jimmy
Jimmy
Page,
Page.
from Led Zeppelin.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was always very intriguing to me because, I mean, even his guitars had Zozo on it, and some of the symbolism of Led Zeppelin had Zozo on it, So the fact that Zozo was appearing there and seemed to have coincidence with these dragons, it makes me wonder if maybe there was, dragons have been associated with hell.
Mhm.
Okay, so it makes me wonder if there was some sort of portal opening or opening in the ground or in that forest of some sort of demonic charge or demonic entity.
Yeah, I mean, when they described this creature, now there was a huge creature, but the wings did not match the physics and the aerodynamics to propel a huge creature like that. Just like what we experienced, the witnesses experienced in Chicago. Uh, those wings could not uh, allow a creature that size to move the way it did. So there was always this presumption through our investigations that there was some type of supernatural aspect to these beings that allowed them to move without even flapping the wings many times. But there was some type of propulsion. Well, it kind of goes in the same vein with what these people are seeing over there in this abbey in Surrey. So maybe there's something to that. That was another aspect to this that really fascinated me because maybe they are thought form or possibly a being, an ultra terrestrial that can move in and out, like what has been going on with the Chicago Mothman sightings.
That I don't know. That I really don't know or understand. I find it completely interesting.
Mhm.
This story does continue though. Okay. Julia Pooley said that she was in the cloisters when she thought she heard children's voices calling mum. These geese made noise. When they moved to the tree, she then heard somebody say, "Look at that." Looking up, she saw what she thought was a bat circling and thought, "My God, that's the biggest bat I've ever seen." The creature's wings looked bat like, but did not beat as fast as a bat. The wings moved more like a bird's, despite being structured like a bat's. It had a long tail and a long, thin head. The creature looked black, but when caught in the moonlight or torchlight, It was silver. Something
Mhm.
was trailing under it, maybe its legs. The creature landed in the yew tree before taking off again. And a second one flew by the ruins. She tried to take a picture on her phone, but all she got was a whitish blob. She said it had bat wings rather than bird wings. I've not seen anything like it. It looked podgy when in the tree, but long and slender in flight. Julia felt afraid of the creatures and thought they could easily swoop down and kill her. Luke did not get a good look at the creatures. He did see they had bat like wings, and when one landed in the yew, he could see a silvery eye shine as it looked at him. Luke Gosling, the other Luke, said that he was at the hanging tree, the old yew, engaging in table tipping when he thought he saw a bat. It soon resolved into a massive flying animal with a 10-foot wingspan and a long tail. It had a long neck and pointed head. The creature flew into the tree. When he shone his torch at it, he saw the long tail with the arrowhead point. He produced a sketch of the beast showing its bat-like wings and long tail. He was convinced it wasn't a bird. I was impressed by the lack of exaggeration in the witnesses' accounts. There were no gnashing teeth or flaming breath. They just reported what they saw with no dressing. As Darren said, they were looking for ghosts. Dragons were the last thing they'd expect to see. Neither is there a dragon legend associated with the Abbey. I decided that Jackie Tonks and I needed to meet with more of the witnesses at the Abbey to try and recreate what the group was doing that night. Not every one of the original 10 witnesses could make it, but Darren, Julia, Dora, and 2 of the Lukes were able to join just before sunset at the Abbey. We saw a large heron fishing nearby, and Darren confirmed that the flying creatures he saw looked nothing like it. As darkness fell, we had a Ouija board session. The planchette indicated that a dragon would manifest that night, but then degenerated into nonsense. I'm skeptical about Ouija boards, as in my experience, they seldom make sense. Later, we tried table turning with a small fold-up table. Several of us got lightly put our hands on the surface of the table. It began to tremble and jerk after a while, then would rise on 2 legs, then 1 leg, and spin around. I failed to see how this was happening naturally, as we were not gripping the sides but gently laying our fingers upon it. A little later, I glanced at a tree line some 820 feet away. This was not the same tree line that Dora saw, the huge bat-like wing entity. For a split second, I saw a black shape that seemed to fall from above into the trees. I could not make out the shape. It was just a black mass. However, it was visible against the night sky and would have had to be of decent size for me to see it from so far away. Shortly after the same general area, an extraordinary noise that I can best describe as a moaning growl. It was unlike any wild animal or indeed any livestock I have ever heard of. I do not claim that this was a dragon vocalizing or indeed that it was paranormal. I couldn't identify it. While walking near the transept sometime later, I saw a small bright golden light about the size of a pea. It whizzed past my face about 3 feet away, dragging a comet-like trail behind it. The sighting only lasted for a couple of seconds. Nothing further happened that night, and we finally left about midnight. So what is occurring at Waverly Abbey? There seems to be several phenomena, weird creatures, strange lights, and poltergeist-like activity all happening in what may be a new window area. John Downs thinks that this may be the most important UK Fortean flap since the Owlman saga. I think it's unlikely the witnesses were lying. They seem genuinely scared by what they had seen. They were looking for ghosts, and dragons were the last thing on their minds. Could they have mistaken for large birds? Britain's largest native bird, the great bustard, has a wingspan of 8 feet 10 inches and weigh about 46 pounds. They are found only in Wiltshire, and about 100 live there after a reintroduction program. Other large birds found in the UK include mute and whooper swans, golden and white-tailed eagles, common cranes, gray herons, European eagle owls, and Canadian geese. That's what we call our Air Force around here. But none of these have bat-like wings or long tails ending in arrow-shaped points. The HBO TV series House of the Dragon, the prequel to Game of Thrones, was filming in Bourne Woods, some 1,000 meters from the Abbey in 2023. The filming took place from August to October and wrapped long before the sightings on December 27th. Battle scenes were later filmed there, as well as a blue screen on which a CGI wyvern would later be animated. All the wyverns in the House of the Dragons were CGI, so none of them could be used as an explanation for sightings of dragons at Waverly Abbey. Flying remote-controlled dragons were not used in the production at all. Remote-controlled pterosaurs, some life-size, have been built in the past, but in flight, they look stiff and unreal. They cannot land in trees or in Abbey ruins to crawl around, so we can discount this. The filming of a fantasy series in an area is simply synchronicity. I do not think that the dragon people are reporting from around the world or flesh and blood animals in the way of a crocodile or anaconda. In these plain-sight things inhabited our world full time, they would be seen regularly, not to mention turning up on radar. They would be attacking aircraft, carrying people off, and burning down cities. The dragon in feel is, for what of a better term, a paranormal manifestation. Dragons are real, but just a different kind of real. They are part of what I call global monster template. Your thoughts, Lon, as we got about 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, the whole thing about the House of the Dragon and being filmed there is kind of interesting, but I don't know. I mean, just like he calls the global monster template, which before I read this, I had never heard that term before, though others have told me that Richard and John have used that term. I guess it just means a type of manifestation or an ultra-terrestrial that shows up in an area where it just is not normally seen. But it's an interesting concept, and he does lay it out fairly well. I mean, there's no way that this could have been something that was an animatronic or something like that, because it would have definitely looked unreal. So yeah, I don't know what to think.
I'm going with my theory.
Mm-hmm.
After reading this, not talking to the witnesses, but this seems like a pretty in-depth study on this with real quotes from people. I believe that they saw what they saw, but I think it's something they conjured up considering who they were chatting with on the Ouija board in a place that has a lot of, or at one point had a lot of, Christianic and godly activity.
Well, we can also talk about magic as well, and some of the connotations associated with that. Of course, you're talking like Aleister Crowley, and that you talked about you talk about Jimmy Page and the guys over at Led Zeppelin and their association with the teachings of Aleister Crowley, and of course living in his home at one point. I don't know. I mean, is Zozos really part of something that's involved here? Is it an entity manufactured or manifested being? Does it have access to these creatures on the other side to come onto our earth plane? Who knows?
Yeah, I have no clue, my man. I have no clue. It is a stunning report from Richard Freeman, good Fortean researcher out of the United Kingdom, cryptozoologist. I'm just baffled by it. I really am baffled by it, and excitedly baffled, because this is not something that you hear of every day. And I don't know how it makes me feel, but I could tell you this, it feels real, if that makes sense.
Well, people that have had encounters, me included, kind of feel the same way. I mean, what we saw, we believe is real. It may have been an ultra terrestrial. It may not have been something that lives on our dimension full time, but the way that this investigation initially has turned out and what they're bringing up now and what they're looking into, because there is an addendum to this. It's a well done study. It really is, and I got to give him a lot of credit for it.
On that note, Lon, I think we better go to break. I know we got a lot of questions coming up from our audience on Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Lon, we're clear.
Mm-hmm.
That is just amazing. I am loving this story.
I told you it was a good one.
I am totally loving this story right now. This is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It really is an exciting story.
Well, you kind of got a feeling of what I go through every time I get something like this, and when I have witnesses calling me and contacting me, and describing unimaginable encounters,
right?
A lot like what's been going on in Chicago, but 180 sometimes, other than just one sighting or one encounter. I mean, I had 180 of those that we believed were actual encounters.
Right.
It is. And look, it's hard to believe. I mean, I can understand that. But the fact that it came from Richard, who I've known for quite a while, and John Downs and all, and John saying he believes it's the biggest 14 incident since the Owlman Mall one, that's significant.
Oh yeah. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And it's creepy, it's scary, and it really needs to be something figured out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, they're continuously looking into it. Yeah, I told Richard, if I ever get the chance to get over there at some point, I'm definitely going to the place, see what I can pick up. But yeah, it is creepy. Maybe there is a portal there. Maybe it's something that's transcendental, whatever you want to say. It's something that moves from other places to places. I don't know, but there's a lot of questions, and but honestly, it does hit on some points that I have brought up with some of the investigations I've been involved with, and some of the questions I have, and so
that's great.
Yeah,
absolutely great. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. From here. I know our audience is loving it too by reading the comments.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
He did an article in 14 Times about this as well.
Hello, Dirty.
Mm.
Go. We've got about 38 seconds. Thank you tonight to Benno, Walter, Mikey ×2, and Georgie for the great super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. If you're new here, do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell, as we have literally. What was it? I totally forgot. I blanked out on what I was going to say. Literally something. I just can't figure it out. And coming back in 5 seconds, Lon.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening and welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We're into the second half of the show as we have Lon Strickler from phantomsandmonsters.com for the next half hour. Before we bring Lon back in, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archive is always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. On X, you can follow us at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Lon Strickler, phantomsandmonsters.com. We have until the top of the hour for a show we call Strange Days. We've been talking about dragons tonight. Now, Lon, there was a few cases that we read, and if people missed that, they can go back in the archives to listen to it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But in your estimation here, with your experience, do you believe that these people were seeing something from a different world, maybe looking into a different timeline? Or do you think that they were, how can we put it? That they were maybe just seeing something of a spectacle opening up in front of them because of what they were doing as ghost hunters?
Well, the way they described movement and the way it manifested and such, I think they actually saw something. I don't think it could have been a specter or some type of non-corporeal being that was manifested or shown to them in a certain form. It could be a lot of things, but with the evidence that Richard has provided, though it is anecdotal evidence, it's very similar to what I have been hearing from people in and around Chicago. Something very similar to this, where they just show up, and from all intents and purposes, from the way people describe those beings, they were flesh and blood, that they were a corporeal being. Even the police who had reported sightings and people that worked at O'Hare, there was no indication that these were some type of hologram or some type of non-corporeal energy that just kind of flashed in front of them. It was something that was literally living, breathing, and had volume to it. So I think you have to take what they said with as some substance, as something that was really seen, though they just don't understand what it was, and but are describing what was laid out to them. So got to give them credit.
No kidding. No kidding. Are you ready for some audience questions?
Sure.
All right, let's go and start off with Mikey tonight. Lon, how many reports or stories have you heard of Toad Road, of people going missing, the weird things that happen each mile you walk deeper into it? Explain to the people who might not know of Toad Road.
Well, Toad Road is an area in south central Pennsylvania. It's south of the city of York. It's actually not too far from the Raymeyer house, which was associated with a haunting and some type of witchcraft. But anyway, the Toad Road, and Timothy Renner wrote about this in his first book, because he has a research area not far from there. But it's actually an old road where people have either sensed a lot of weird things, or there are speculations that people did go missing, though I'm not really sure how true that is. But it's one of those folkloric stories from this area that people have talked about and continue to talk about. But he wrote pretty extensively. Timothy wrote extensively about it. You may want to search for Timothy Renner. It's his first book about York and Adams County and all the phenomena that happens in those areas.
All right. Let us continue with another question. Let's go to little Mikey again. Lon, do you believe the report of the dragon could have possibly been the Jersey Devil?
Well, it could have been something associated or something that could have been very similar to it. The descriptions are very, very close, especially the horse-like head and possibly the size as well. People have described different sizes of the Jersey Devil. I do believe the Jersey Devil is an ultra-terrestrial, a being that moves in and out between dimensions as well, as I believe most cryptids are. So it could be something very close in scope as to what people are seeing in the Pine Barrens.
Let's go to Jules. How big are these dragons people are seeing? Are there big ones and little ones?
Well, according to this, what Richard wrote about there, these things had some fairly decent size to them. Though the reports that I have received from people are pretty substantially sized creatures. I've had people tell me that what they saw were up to maybe 100 foot in length and or more. The sightings in New Jersey in particular, which was not in the Pine Barrens, it was further north, up in Hamilton and Tuckahoe areas, central New Jersey. But of course, there could be smaller ones, but the ones I have reported on or been sent to me were substantial size.
I like the reports that you provided tonight, the one in Wisconsin especially, and the one in the UK. And they seem so fantastical, like the one in Wisconsin where there were fireballs coming out of its mouth, smoke coming out of its nose. I mean, that just it blows my mind that this could even be possible. On, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, welcome to Fortean research. I mean, that a lot of what we hear about in Fortean research is unbelievable. But that's why we do what we do. We're trying to get answers and the best way we can. It's not always easy. We get very little evidence other than anecdotal. But you got to take the emotional and aspect of it from the witnesses and such, and take that in consideration. And of course, their descriptions and everything else they provide to you. I'm always fascinated when I get reports where people do not embellish. They continually stick to their original account and don't embellish on it. And, I don't want people reporting things to me and embellishing just to make me happy. I want them to tell me exactly what they saw and exactly what they think they saw and how they reacted to it.
All right. Let's go to another question here. Let us go to Mike again. Have you had any reports of dragons coming out of or into bodies of water?
No, none of the sightings I received were anything associated with water.
Have any of these dragon entities breathed out anything other than fire?
Um, the reports that I received, none of them had any type of fire-related material coming out of their mouths, though one witness stated that the thing flew over him after he got out of the car and was close enough that he could feel intense heat coming off of it.
Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how close would that have had to be if to feel the heat off of it?
Yeah, I don't know how close it was, but it was, it was close enough that it was covering the sky when it went over him. And all he told me was that he felt the heat as it went by.
Wow. I don't mean to sound shocked over that, but that is cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to Blue Cruise again. Have any of these dragon entities changed their physical appearance into another living form?
Well, with Richard's story or Richard's account, you would think it would, because it did sound like there was some shape shifting involved with it, or some type of mutation or something to where it kind of changed shape to a degree. I don't know. None of the reports that I received from folks about these supposed dragons had any type of shape shifting or any type of changes to it.
Jules is asking, how would you know a gargoyle from a dragon without the fire going on at the moment?
I don't know. I guess size-wise and the way it looks, a lot of the Mothman sightings, the Chicago Mothman sightings, people described them as gargoyles. And it had a lot to do with not necessarily the head, but the body style, even though it was emaciated looking, but mostly the wings, since they were bat-shaped or gargoyle-winged shape. The size was nothing comparable to what these people had been saying they were. So the entity itself in the Chicagoland area was a size that most people expect, like a 6-foot length creature with 12 to or 10 to 15 foot wingspans.
Okay, let's continue on. Let's go next to Blue here. Have you heard about or seen the 1945 footage of the 3 dragon entities coming out of the underground caves or caverns during the atomic bomb testing in the southwestern United States?
I have never seen that.
I've never either. Never either. That would be interesting. All right. Let's go to Jose. What are your thoughts on small dinosaur sightings running amok? Some people have allegedly seen them.
Yeah, and I've talked to Jose about that before. And I presented in one of my podcasts. There are certain areas, particularly Hebronville, Texas, where there have been 3 different sightings of dinosaur-like creatures, though they were smaller in size. Yeah, there have been sightings of these small T-Rex looking creatures. A lot of people say, well, they were just looking at road runners. Nah, they were a little bigger than that, but there have been other sightings, especially in the Midwest and into the Southern Plains areas.
And little mini raptors running around.
Yeah,
too.
I've heard people describe raptors. In fact, there were several sightings of raptor-like creatures in Ohio. I forget what town that was, but it was 3 separate sightings in Ohio, but I can't recall the name of the town or what area it was or what county it was.
Let's do a follow-up from Jose here. Could Mothman then be mistaken for dragons?
Well, we did have a dragon sighting in Chicago of something that was huge in the sky that the person swore was a dragon. Could they be small dragons? I don't know. Maybe so. But people have described them being more humanoid creatures with wings. So you want to stretch it a bit and say they may be dragons, I guess you could, but not necessarily what people have been describing to us.
Right. And the one thing that we don't want to do, as for somebody who's, say, skeptical listening into this, it's going to be hard to believe right off the bat. But if you start throwing a lot of what ifs in there, what it could be, not to insult Jose or anybody about the questions, but that's where a lot of people will say, look, these guys are getting ridiculous with their thinking now. And I'm open-minded to think, hey, Jose has a good question. Could the Mothman be dragons? But for the skeptics out there, they're going to look at this, they're going to say, the hell are these guys talking about, Lon? Like, is this
I'm
even
used to that.
possible?
I'm used to that.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, that's why I love the audience questions, my man, because they come up with brilliant questions like that. I guess with about 8 minutes to go here before we have to say goodnight to you, the idea that dragons do have a nefarious reputation, the fire breathing, the burning of villages, the kidnapping of people and using them as food, all sorts of things like that. I mean, do we really want to add dragons to the Fortean culture again?
I don't know. They've been part of the Fortean culture from the very beginning. So, regardless of how old they are, I mean, you talk about dog-headed people. I mean, did we want to put them into the same category as the dog man, the upright canines, what people are seeing nowadays? Is something associated with that? Or the wild men and the Bigfoot and whatever else people called them? It's all part of what we look into, and it's just something else that people are reporting, and it's our job to look into it and try to come up with answers.
I wonder, though, if they are real. Okay. Now, I'm not going to put anything down about this topic.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I do believe that it is a great conversation piece.
Mhm.
I really do, Lon. But I wonder if they were seeing into a different timeline when these things were flying around.
That's entirely possible. We get enough reports of people walking through portals or seeing things coming out of possible portals that did come from another timeline. Even though scientifically wise, we just can't prove it. But who's to say that we won't eventually? We come up with a lot of theories about interdimensional travel and creatures coming from other dimensions or other realities and such. And it sounds like nonsense to a lot of people. But honestly, when you look into the whole investigation and wonder why we don't find bodies of Bigfoot or other evidence of physical evidence of these creatures, you got to think something's going on. And, one thing I have seen over the years as we've gone deeper and deeper into all this stuff, people that were in particular Bigfoot who have been researching Bigfoot for decades, they're starting to wonder why we're not seeing bodies either. And, they're kind of expanding on their thoughts as well. So maybe one day we'll get an answer. And at this point right now, all we can do is speculate. So that's what we do. So, it's put out there as speculation and not necessarily we do believe it or don't believe it, but we're just putting the possibility out there.
Well, I think that's one of the big questions that we have to ask. When it comes to bodies like Bigfoot or Dogman or anything like this, for so long I hate to use the terminology, the flesh and blood crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. They've thought for years, and many still do, that you're not allowed to look at the supernatural aspect of it because it is so unscientific.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing a lot more trending towards the possibility of it happening. And yeah, you have your staunch non-believers, and that's fine. You know, you're always going to have them. But on the flip side, I think a lot more people are starting to realize that you can't rule it out if you don't know what it is.
Well, my friend Ronnie, oh God, what's his last name? The guy, LeBlanc, Ronnie LeBlanc, the Bigfoot investigator. He was on that TV show for a couple of seasons. He just wrote a book, and you know what it's titled?
What's that?
Interdimensional.
Oh, really?
And it's got a Bigfoot on the cover.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. A lot of people may be listening to this, Lon, and just say, you know, this seems so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
This seems so science fiction. You know, we're talking monsters here. And a lot of those people just haven't had the experience. Okay. I was talking to one skeptic on WPHT radio the other night. Casey was hosting for Walter M. Sterling. And I was talking with him, and he's like, you know, they don't exist. I'm like, do they not exist because you've never been in that area for Bigfoot? You've never put yourself in that position, and you're being an armchair skeptic quarterback here? Or are you out there looking and not finding any evidence? Which one is it? And I think a lot of people have that trouble deciphering. It's great to be skeptical. Please do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they also understand that a lot of people who do have these experiences, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, or cryptids like the dragons or Bigfoot, that you're looking for logic first before you are ruling out the impossible.
Well, I've always said the best witnesses are those witnesses who were previously skeptics that had an encounter. And they're probably more forthright and believable about what they encountered, because that skepticism just goes out the door and they're seeing something that they just cannot believe. But boy, it sticks with them. And they come up with the best descriptions and the best anecdotal evidence you can ever find.
Two minutes to go here
Mhm.
as we continue on. Overall, getting back to the dragons, where would you categorize this in the Fortean lore?
Just as a unknown cryptid, or a creature that just does not defined by science or by zoology, but people believe that they have seen it. That's basically a cryptid. I mean, you know, anything that is described as something that's unknown to science, that, you know, seems to be a corporeal being, is a cryptid. And that's where where I put it at. That's where I put Mothman at. That's where I put Bigfoot, canines, cryptid canines, and everything else. Creatures that just defy explanation.
Do me a favor, if you don't
Mhm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
Take the next 40 seconds. Tell everybody where they could find your books, your research, your podcast, everything.
The website is phantomsandmonsters.com, spelled out, phantomsandmonsters.com. The books can be found on Amazon. Just search my name. My radio show is, podcast is Phantoms and Monsters Radio. It's on YouTube and Spotify. All the links are on the website for everything. This Friday night, we are talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and we're going to reveal some stories that are unknown to others. Some things I have received over the years and have never disclosed.
Lon Strickler, phantomsandmonsters.com. We love him around here. Coming up next in hour 3, Swampy and the Wizard.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Great job tonight, Lon. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome of you. Awesome. Really appreciate you, buddy. You
No
have
problem.
a good night.
Yeah, you take care.
Yeah, those stories were phenomenal. I appreciated reading those.
Well, anything comes up, give me a buzz.
I will. I'll even give you a little hat tip.
Okay. You take care.
Have a good night, buddy.
Mhm.
Lon Strickler, everybody. We'll be right back. right. I am back. Let's bring in the wizard. There he is.
There I is.
Here. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Fantastic. Another week.
Excuse me.
Hard to believe that January is almost over.
Right?
Just rolling right along.
It's all good, man. Right. So good to have you here, buddy.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
It's always fun.
Gonna get into some good conversation tonight.
We will, as we always do, my friend. As we always do. All right, 20 seconds. Thank you to Benno ×2, Mikey ×2, Walter, and Georgie for the great super chats tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very much. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. Check it out. Go check out our swag. Here we go, everybody. We are into the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We have Swamp Dweller and Josh Rutledge, the UFO wizard, coming up here momentarily. But first, I want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hariolate. Hariolate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. My story takes place a couple of years ago when I went on vacation with my friend Sarah and her family. I'm originally from Texas, but the events mentioned occurred in Tennessee. Sarah's family and I went on a road trip for the summer, and all was going pretty awesomely. On the second day of the trip, Sarah's mom allowed Sarah and I to go ziplining by ourselves. When we arrived at the spot we were supposed to go ziplining, we saw a bunch of people from all age ranges, ready to do the same thing. The instructor began lining us up and dividing us by van numbers, as our group was big enough to warrant several vans taking us to the spot where we'd be ziplining. While we waited in line, Sarah and I noticed a man ahead of us trying to take a selfie with a rather large camera. His camera was at such an angle that you could see us. After noticing us, the man turned around and smiled. We all laughed and we began talking to the man, who was wondering where we were from and if we were tourists in the area. I didn't think much of this and just figured the guy wanted to do some small talk, and so we told him where we were from. This was when the man told us he was 22 and traveling the roads, which we thought was super cool. Soon enough, the instructor had us get into the vans. I was first, followed by Sarah. There was a woman who was next, but the dude we were chatting with suddenly cut her in line. He got a seat next to Sarah. We eventually were all filled up and the van began moving. The guy continued talking to us, which was when I began to feel a little bit weird about everything. The guy's questions were becoming more detailed. He asked Sarah what her name was, and I quickly tried to cut them off, warning her not to give out her name. Naturally, she didn't listen. I refused to give my name out. The questions for which he now directed at Sarah soon began to turn to things like what was her Snapchat and her Instagram. This made me even more suspicious as we told him that she was 14 and he is 22. Why in the hell would he want to know about Instagram and Snapchat anyway? After this, he took things a step further and asked if we'd take a picture with him. I quickly turned the guy's offer down and then tried to get Sarah to do the same, but she ignored my caution and took pictures with the guy anyway. When we arrived at the campsite and got to the instructor, she began telling us the rules and giving us directions on what to do next. Sarah and I moved up front to hear better. As we did, the camera guy slowly worked his way behind us. It was now that Sarah was finally starting to get an off vibe about the guy, so we continued moving back and forth among the group trying to ditch the dude. The guy continued following us back and forth, and upon hearing the instructor ask who wanted to go first, Sarah and I immediately volunteered, hoping to put as much space between us and that dude as possible. As predicted, however, the dude quickly moved up to be the one to go right after us. Freaked by this, we talked to the instructor, who then let the people in front of him to break us all apart. After ziplining, the dude eventually got caught up to us again. Worried for me and Sarah's safety, I called the guy out on his stalking ways. This made the guy get defensive and throw his hands up in the air, but he did back off. The rest of the day was fine after this, and thankfully on the way back, the guy purposely took a different van, so as not to creep us out, I guess. We've learned from our experiences. The best thing we can say, though, is if you're ever on any trip, always be careful on who you let close. Who knows what would have happened if we didn't confront that guy. I like not thinking too much about it, though, because it could have gone really bad.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to YouTube, type in Swamp Dweller, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We have literally thousands of stories there for you to listen to at your convenience. From the swamp to the stars, let's bring in our wizard, the UFO Report with Josh Rutledge. Wizard, it's always a good time to have you here on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, Dave. Glad to be here. Going to be a great conversation tonight. The topics we're going to talk about, really interested in getting into them.
Where do you want to start?
I think I want to start with Mr. Beast and his recent tour of SpaceX. I myself do not watch a lot of Mr. Beast's content. My kids really don't watch his content either, but supposedly he's like the guy or the person when it comes to YouTube. And he was doing an episode about, breakthrough technology. And towards the end of that episode, he was touring SpaceX to talk about their spaceships that they're building. You're going to be able to carry around 100 people per ship to do, tours in space and to Mars and so on and so forth. So, from a technological perspective, pretty cool. But as they're kind of touring the facility, in the very beginning, Mr. Beast asked the person who's given him a tour, which I did try to find who that person might be. And I searched LinkedIn and reverse image search and everything, and I can't find it. But based on some of the conversation and things, that is probably, somebody, an engineer or something within that department. But anyways, he asked this guy, so do you guys ever see any unidentified anomalous phenomena when you're doing your launches? And the guy's like, no. And then Mr. Beast says, would the question or would the answer be different if I were to ask you off camera? And the guy pauses a little bit. And then in the footage, he has like a little smirk on his face and he kind of says, no, just like, so almost alluding to it might be different. But since he was on camera, he didn't want to hint at the possibility that it could be different. So I think this is interesting because I've watched a lot of SpaceX launches. They generally have all kinds of cameras set up on the rocket body and everything else, and you can see a lot of cool stuff. And I've seen some peculiar things, moving around underneath the rockets when they're taking off. Most of the time, people will tell me, "Well, it's the fuel that they're burning. It produces a lot of ice, and it's the ice or something flaking off from the fuel that they're burning, or something like that." Which that's plausible, but some of the stuff that I've seen below the rockets is like, it's moving along, and then all of a sudden it makes like almost like a 90-degree turn, and it goes back the direction it was coming in. So is that still propellant, or is that something else? The other thing I've noticed is recently a lot of SpaceX launches don't include camera footage. Is that because they were losing cameras, or because um, they're starting to draw the attention of UFOs, and they don't want them to show up in their feed? I don't know. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Well, I did watch this video, and I watched it. Mr. Beast usually puts out one video every 3 weeks to a month on his channel. I'm a fan of his. A lot of people don't like him. I like what he does. I really do. And the fact that he has almost 500 million subscribers on YouTube is pretty impressive, not to say the least. But as a journalist, and I said this when I was talking to Walter Sterling on WPHT in Philadelphia in one of our segments, I look at that little piece of content, and if you go to his latest video, it's like $1 to $1 billion technological feats, or whatever it may the title is. It's his latest one on the Mr. Beast channel. At about 19 minutes 4 seconds is where you want to watch the video. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, come on. This is for a Mr. Beast channel. Don't read too much into what the SpaceX guy says. You're reading too deeply into it." But as a journalist, my job is to read between the lines for the story. And when you look at all of the cover-ups that have happened through NASA, and right into even Elon Musk being asked about UFOs and SpaceX, and he's kind of dodged the question sheepishly at times, it really made me wonder whether or not this guy was just saying it because he was on a popular YouTube channel, or if he was saying it because there was something more to it. His reaction to the question seemed to leave him very uncomfortable. Like he probably wasn't prepared for it, or just didn't know how to answer it. It could be that simple a logic, or he does know something. And the one thing I hearken to is going back to the Gemini program with NASA. There have been reports of UFOs following the launches, meeting up with launched craft once they, get out of earthly orbit. Astronauts, test pilots of the X-15 have all made reports saying that this is something that has been following them, or something that they saw out their windows as they were flying into space, or into the upper atmosphere where only angels fly. And it made me wonder whether or not this guy was saying something that we shouldn't know. Because Mr. Beast, if you watch his videos, he is very uncomfortably comfortable on camera. He's not the smoothest guy on camera. So asking that question where it seemed to catch the guy off guard, to me, it was anomalous. It was anomalous the way he said it. It was the anomalous, the reaction. And look, I know there's going to be people listening to this who say, "Dave, you're reading way too much into this." Okay, that's what the UFO community does. Reads way too deeply into something that isn't there. What's that old saying? There's no there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it could possibly be. But when you look at the fact that so many incidents have happened with craft, whether it's the International Space Station or rockets launching or NASA projects, whether it's test craft like the X-15 back in the day or the SR-71, where they had these encounters with things following. Astronauts are some of the smartest people in the world. They have to be because of the conditions. They're trained observers. They have to be aware of everything around their surroundings. Not so much today for the pilots because everything is so computerized. But back in the day when they were flying the shuttle programs or they were flying the rockets after it disengaged from the main rocket system to get them into orbit, they had a bird's eye view of everything that was around them. And for these brilliant men and women who have seen things that A, maybe they don't want to talk about, or B, reported on and then got silenced, I believe there is something to it. I don't think we're reading into it wrong. The guy was uncomfortable. And I encourage all of the listeners to go take a look at that video at 19 minutes, 4 seconds of Mr. Beast's latest video and tell me what you think. I'm curious about what our audience thinks. Your thoughts?
I would agree that his body language and facial expression read as if he was not expecting the question. But the second response, where he was asked, if off camera his answer would be different, that facial expression was more like a playful, sheepish grin type thing. I don't think it was yes, I know more, and I will, and I can't tell you. It really feels like I'm going to play this up for the camera because I'm on with Mr. Beast. Now that being said, I do think that, I would agree with you that astronauts, any cameras on rockets, we talked about, a few months ago, something that was flying, near the International Space Station, that the camera, on the dark side of the Earth, and the camera quickly cut out once it was in frame. I think all of that stuff. I know all of that stuff happens. John Glenn, first American to orbit the Earth. He saw what he described as thousands of tiny luminous fireflies, yellow-green particles dancing around his Friendship 7 capsule. The very first, basically he was the very first American astronaut and to make it into space. And he described things. So I do not doubt that astronauts or camera systems on rockets or International Space Station or whatever else, I do not doubt that they are capturing things. The thing that comes to mind with SpaceX, though, and I wonder if this is the case. Well, let's just assume for a moment that SpaceX does have footage of anomalous phenomenon. Whatever that, whatever it might be, craft, lights in the sky, whatever, but they have footage of it. Since the SpaceX program is heavily dependent upon taxpayer money in the form of the contract they have with NASA to shuttle things up, back and forth to space, they may have been told, hey, you can't disclose any of the things that you might see in space while you're flying into space. And if you do so, it forfeits the contract. Basically an NDA, so to speak. And I could see that happening. That's why I like watching the people who post their private trips on, what is it, Blue Origin or whatever, the other, like the one Katy Perry went on and stuff like that. Like the people who actually post the videos and things that they took while they were in orbit, those are awesome to see because that company has, to my knowledge, other than probably, the rights to launch rockets into space, they don't really have anything going on with the government. So it's really interesting to see those videos and look through them frame by frame and see if they happen to catch anything that, wasn't able to be filtered or redacted before it hit, YouTube.
Well, wasn't there that one guy from the Dude Perfect channel who had
Yep.
some sort of sighting on Blue Origin?
Yeah, it was Kobe, I think, was the one of the Dude Perfect guys. I think it was like a promotion to advertise a company that does they're a nonprofit, and they raise money to grant the wish to send people into space for free. And so it was kind of done in conjunction with them to advertise it. But yeah, Kobe went to space and he uploaded his footage. And while I was watching that video with my kids, I did notice what appeared to be, a UFO. He was filming out of his capsule window. It was below them, in the atmosphere. It flew towards, like, past the capsule, and then again it turned and made, like, not a 90 degree, but it just kind of turned and then went the other direction in the atmosphere, and it was black, almost kind of triangular or diamond shaped. I did an analysis of that video with slowing it down and zooming in and things with some video editing software. I put that up on my YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to check that out, you can look at it. But yeah, it's that's what I say. I like looking at that kind of stuff because it's less likely to be redacted, and you actually get the potential to see things. Now, Blue Horizon, I don't think goes technically all the way into space. I think they go to like the last atmospheric layer, far enough that you get to experience zero gravity, and then they come back down. So whatever was captured was probably still in the atmosphere. But again, the turn that it made, the direction change,
Right.
nothing that I know of that the U.S. or any of the world has the ability to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. We don't have a clue of what it's like to be up that high and see really what is going on. And we have to rely on instances like that, and it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall of somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk about what they get read into when it comes to anomalies like this, because I believe you're right. I believe there is a major security measure going on that if something is seen, you are not to report on it. I'm sure there's a group in there that is saying, hey, we'll take the report, but it doesn't go further than this. And Musk has been a little aloof on that question about UFOs. And at some time, I mean, he's made fun of the topic. At one point, he said, I am an alien on X, and everybody kind of went wild with that a long time ago. I would take that one as a joke. But on the flip side, but he might be, who knows?
Well, he's from South Africa.
You know what I find funny? Yes, he is from South Africa.
So in the US, he's an alien.
Everybody talks about him being from South Africa and then going to the US, but everybody forgets the pit stop that he lived a lot of his young life in Canada. He is a Canadian citizen as well. So it is intriguing to see where this is going to go. I don't see him giving up any information. I don't see SpaceX giving up any information. I mean, you look at the hard time he took for taking a hit of the devil's lettuce on the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, that nearly got his contract or his security clearance terminated right there. So imagine if he let out something more important like UFOs. But then again, maybe at some point he's just not going to care and do it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I think we're probably very close to, if not already, to the point where the U.S. is more dependent on him than he is on us.
Josh Rutledge of the UFO Report continues with the Wizard right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, Wizard, we're good.
All righty.
That was interesting to talk about.
Yeah. But I really do think that's what, like, I think it was tongue in cheek for him to say, I'm an alien, because, in the non-extraterrestrial sense of the word, he is an alien, as far as the US is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So he could make the statement and it can be true, and yet it can also, spark controversial posts and statements and everything else by the community.
Agreed. Fully agreed. Fully agreed.
I don't know. I don't know how much of our time in the second half is going to be taken up with the other thing, but I just wanted to make a personal statement. I think that Ross Coulthart has jumped the shark. Do you know what that phrase means?
Somewhat, but I'm trying to figure out how you're using it in this.
Well, I think he's gone too far, I think, with some of the assertions and implications that he's made recently. He's turned into a trust me bro type guy in the community now. Supposedly he's been right in on all this information. He can't tell anybody anything specific about it. Trust me, bro. It's just he comes across to me no longer a journalist, but instead just a trust me bro type attitude, mentality. And I understand there's this whole thing about protecting your sources and not being able to report on things until you have all the information and details together. But then if that's the case, don't even mention it until you've got all your ducks in a row and you're able to put something out. Because until then, you're just like everybody else that, is coming forward, all these whistleblowers and witnesses that are coming forward. I got the goods. Can't tell you about them. Trust me, though.
I have a lot to say about that. That could probably take up a good 45 minutes of the show.
Okay.
I will paraphrase that down to this. I think Ross does a great job for News Nation. I think he is very tapped in to some people. But, and I want to word this very carefully because I don't want it to sound like it's jealousy as a fellow journalist or anything like that. I think there should be a concern that if I was American, and I'm not, I'm a foreign journalist as well, but I would be concerned as an American that the majority of these UFO studies and stories that are coming out are not being reported on by American journalists.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the great work of Ross, whether it's the great work of Christopher Sharp from Liberation Times, or many others, they seem to be getting a lot more information out than U.S. journalists outside of George Knapp.
Yeah.
Outside of George Knapp, there's not a full-time U.S. journalist on this subject. Sure, you can look at somebody like Stephen Greenstreet, who comes at it from a completely different angle. You can look at Matt Laszlo from Askapol, who gets more into the political side of this subject. But those getting news out of the Pentagon, the most sacred place of the U.S. next to the White House, are foreign journalists and not American journalists. And
would you consider Jeremy Corbell
He's not a journalist.
So he's just a podcaster, basically.
He's a documentarian.
Okay.
And George Knapp's right-hand man. George Knapp is an investigative journalist. Okay. And that's not slamming Jeremy. Okay. He's done great work, but we're going to have to continue that.
All right.
We are into the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. On X, follow us at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here's Josh Rutledge. We call him the wizard around here for the UFO report. And right before we get going, I got to tell you this story, my friend.
Okay.
You might have a little bit of a laugh. Totally not UFO related. So my son had a hockey game on the weekend. Go figure. Okay. And we had to drive about an hour and 45 minutes out of town for him to play. So we get to this little town called Clearwater, which is right by Wells Gray National Park, the beginning of it. And that area, believe it or not, has a real bad case of missing people, if you look at the David Paulides side of things. But nonetheless, we're not talking about that. We get to the game about 45 minutes early before he has to be in the rink. So we decide to drive around. Come across this farmyard. And would you know that as we're looking into this snow-covered field, all the cattle eating hay that's been strewn around, what's in the field? 2 camels. Camels. I looked at this, I'm like, are those camels? I had to take a look a bunch of times. You just don't see camels every day in the mountains of British Columbia. Now, there is a history of camels. During the gold rush, they actually brought camels in from the Middle East to help carry the gold, because camels, believe it or not, are very good in winter and summer. But I'd never seen camels on a farm before. And then driving home after the game, here's a rarity, actually had a mountain lion on the highway. And then about half an hour down the road from the mountain lion, a big moose was on the side of the road. It was Canadiana all the way, man. It was awesome. So I thought I would share that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Did you know that the U.S. Army also imported camels in the 1850s? And they established a camel corps where they were, during the gold rush to help in the arid climate of the desert, Arizona, New Mexico, etc. I don't know who did it first, but both Canada and the U.S. imported camels to help with whatever. So,
absolutely. All right. Let's get to more UFO stuff. What do you got for us?
Well, there was this case where a UFO abducted a camel. No, I'm just kidding. So the other thing I thought we would talk about on the show last Thursday, towards the end of the show, one of the listeners in YouTube chat, T-Bone, asked me, baby, about the Greenland UFO. And if you're not familiar with this, it popped up on Reddit like a week and a half ago. And the way that the post was presented on Reddit was, hey, this person posted this stuff about a UFO in Greenland, and then they deleted their post and they deleted their account. But I took screenshots, not I, this is the poster on Reddit, took screenshots, and here's what it was. And this person basically, went on to say that back in the 50s, there was a large UFO crash that involved a craft that was too big to be able to transport back to the US. So instead, they built a base around it in Greenland. And then it was like somehow like it was under the ice or below the ice level. But then during one of the satellite flyovers in recent years, the ice was melted enough that you could kind of see some amount of the structure that was built around the UFO. Um, and the way that this is being proposed is maybe this is why Trump is really interested in Greenland. Now, trying to stay away from the political aspect of it and talk strictly about the UFO piece. I do know we talked about it, I think, at the end of the show last Thursday, that there was an airplane crash in the 50s on Greenland on the ice where I think it was a bomber went down, was carrying like 4 nuclear warheads, and it crashed. And there was a huge recovery effort, and they basically like shut down Greenland, and they this huge endeavor to get this, mainly to get the nuclear weapons off of the island, and then also to recover, bodies of the pilot and the crew and all this kind of stuff. So the question, like the conspiracy thing that pops into my head is like, okay, did the bomber really crash, or was that just a cover story that was given for the UFO? Or did somebody read the story about the bomber crash and think, hey, this would be a really good thing to spin off as a crashed UFO? We do know that there are UFOs that are really big. Take the one that flew over here, Phoenix, in 1997. A lot of people described it as being close to a mile wide. Obviously, if a mile wide UFO crash lands, in the 50s, we don't have the ships to be able to transport that back to the US. So it would make sense we would build a structure around it, or in all actuality, we would study what we could, build a structure around it, and then eventually bury it. And maybe that's what we did. And that's why it's covered up with ice now. I don't know. It's a really interesting story, and in a particular case, that also has some correlation to an actual potential, military crash in the same area around the same location as this proposed UFO. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dave?
Well, I read a story recently that apparently there was a missing squadron of planes that landed or crash landed in Greenland during World War II. And they had, over time, they had to dig them out of the ice surface because they were covered in ice that scientists claimed was 2 million years old or something like that. And yet the planes were only, there 70 years ago. So, and they were under 250 feet of ice as everything has shifted over the years. So it's kind of interesting. I don't think there's any tie to the president going to Greenland or anybody going to Greenland and then for a UFO. I think sometimes we look a little bit too hard in this. It's the same critique I give myself about the Mr. Beast video we talked about just in the last half hour. We could be looking into it too much, but it seems like we're always trying to tie a UFO mystery into wherever the president of the United States goes, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it was Obama, whether it was Clinton or George Bush or whoever. We always seem to try and tie the UFO story into why they traveled to this place.
Yeah, talking about kind of those contradictions that we do in the community. Somebody made a recent kind of made a statement that maybe have kind of an aha moment. And that is when people come forward that were in the government, like all the 34 people in Age of Disclosure, perhaps not, maybe not all of them, but majority of them, we listen to what they have to say, and we say, hey, these are credible people because of their training or because of the programs they were supposedly involved in or because of their stature or whatever the case may be, status. We say these are credible people. But then if somebody else in the government says that's all bunk and it never really happened and we don't have any UFO craft, and they are of a similar status, program access, the whole kit and caboodle, we dismiss it and say, well, they've been paid off or whatever. So it's like, why is one group more credible than the other? And I think it's ultimately because it supports the narrative of the person who is receiving the information. So if you're a nuts and bolts, specifically nuts and bolts guy, and you don't think there's anything to anything that's not nuts and bolts, or like everything that's not nuts and bolts, you say is the U.S. and it's a mill exercise and a psyop and everything, then every witness that comes forward that reinforces your nuts and bolts, they're a credible witness. But every witness that comes forward that doesn't, they've been paid off, they're a psyop, whatever the case may be. So I think this example and those other examples highlight how a lot of the community doesn't really look objectively at all the information that's coming out to see what needs to be, how their perspective of the phenomenon needs to adjust.
I think that's a good observation. I really do.
So like in this situation, right? I don't know who made the post or who originally made the post, but maybe they're a believer that Trump is going to later this year make the announcement that we're not alone. And so having a UFO on the ice in Greenland would help substantiate that claim, right? That's why Trump's going to Greenland to get that UFO, so he can use it as evidence when he makes his speech about we're not being alone. But like we've talked about before, I don't think he's ever going to make that speech because there's not really anything that he benefits from making that speech other than potentially a distraction from something else. But it's again, I think we pick and choose the story and the information and everything we want to accept to whatever supports our narrative.
I think that's exactly it. It is about supporting the UFO narrative, no matter how far fetched we got to go. And that's been happening for years, especially since the public awareness started in 2017. We're 9 years into really sensationalizing every morsel of information. And as social media has taken off, let me ask you this. Do you think social media has caused a lot of this with the influence that TikTok has, with the influence X now has, or YouTube?
I think it has definitely contributed to it. I would say that, the topic like disclosure is now almost like a perpetual motion machine because it feeds itself. And we all just pony up to the trough to get whatever the next little tidbit of information is that comes out. I was talking to somebody just this past weekend about how this is why I don't think we will ever have disclosure, because at this point it's become yet another layer of money making whatever. People can come out with disclosure t-shirts and disclosure podcasts and disclosure documentaries and disclosure books and so on and so forth. And there will never be an end to it because A, like I've talked about before, it's not defined, and B, because there's no, I just don't think there's ever a case where the government actually says, yep, they've been visiting us. Here's my friend Skinny Bob. And he walks out on the stage with the president or whoever, and they take a blood sample. Doctors, I mean, it's like the whole kit and caboodle. Like, I don't think that'll ever happen. And for most people, that's what it's going to take for disclosure to be accepted. And so because of that, it's a perpetual motion machine. And it just keeps feeding itself and feeding itself and feeding itself. And all that gets sploon out everywhere is books and documentaries and everything else. And people get wealthy off of it. And then eventually people will get tired of talking about disclosure because it's been 20 years or 30 years or 40 years and nothing's happened. And then the next thing will spill out. And then the same people will make documentaries and books and podcasts about that.
I was saying to Lon Strickler earlier, okay, that one of the issues that's happening in the paranormal right now is the fact that there are a lot of these new clickbait type TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat channels that are going into these haunted locations, and everything is becoming demons. And a lot of these locations now are banning paranormal groups from going in there because they don't want the reputation of having demons, because everything's a demon. Demon is good for clickbait on these channels, and it's ruining a lot of these businesses and museums who are getting this demon title.
Yep.
Okay. I see a lot of that in the UFO world, with the fear mongering, with the lack of a better term, demonizing of the subject, the clickbait of it all. And I can see where you're going with that, because in the end, people are not using their brains properly, myself included, when I say that, to try and organize the good information from the bad. They are going for the drama. They are going for the clickbait, because we've been trained over the last number of years in ufology that this is what we need to do to gain the information. If somebody gives you an inch, the UFO world is going to take it a mile.
Yep.
Okay. It really is. And it's not healthy on moving the subject forward. And then you get people like myself who complain that these scientists, these government officials, these whistleblowers don't want to talk to people in ufology, the people who are supporting them. And I can see why, when everything gets blown out of proportion so quickly.
Well, that, and I think if they were to talk to a real ufologist, they would probably get asked questions, or maybe some contradictions would occur that would put them in a pickle. It's better, Dan Farah was on with what's the guy's name, Bill Maher, the other night on his podcast. Well, Bill Maher's not fully read on the subject. He probably knows a little bit of information. He's probably watched the 60 Minutes episode that was out a couple of years ago, things like that. But he's not a ufologist. And there's a couple of things that he calls Dan on, and in the interview. But for the most part, Dan just spews some stuff out, and Bill's like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that." I think that's why a lot of these guys do avoid real ufologists, because they don't want to get the hard questions that they probably can't answer. All of Dan, I mean, I have nothing against Dan Farah, but all of his information comes from the people in his documentary. It was told to him. He has no firsthand knowledge of anything. And most of the people in his documentary don't have firsthand knowledge. They've got second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. So it's all, I was watching something earlier from Vetted Patrick said it's all like a big telephone game. And that's what it is. And at what point in time do you trust that the information you're getting is accurate and complete?
I would agree with you. I totally agree with you. With 2 minutes to go, and at some point, ufology needs to take ufology back. When or if that'll happen, I don't know. But the one thing that I have noticed is a lot more of the researchers, the old school researchers prior to 2017, they seem to be going back to their basics. They're keeping in touch with what's going on in the UFO world, but they've seen it run amok. They don't like it. They're going back to their own research rather than relying on the clickbait that we are seeing with whistleblowers, with drama in X accounts and everything like that. Imagine that. It's about 100 people, if that, 100 people who are bringing this subject down for everybody.
Well, and the thing that I think is really missing, and hopefully will change soon, is we have to stop treating the paranormal as separate from ufology, and instead think about how they synthesize together and how they work together. And that's been my pitch for the last 5 years. And until we do that, we're going to continue to circle the drain, frankly.
Tell everybody where they can find Mystic Journeys. We
Yep,
got about
you can find everything I'm doing, my YouTube channel, podcast, etc. You can find on my website, ourmysticjourneys.com. On there, you can also book a private session with me if you'd like to, channeling, tarot, whatever the case may be. Love to work with you.
And it's always a fun time when we have you on this subject because there are so many different ways. I mean, Josh, you and I could literally do this 5 nights a week for 3 hours a night, just talking about the UFO world. It is one of those subjects where there are so many stories and little idiosyncrasies that need to be brought out. But, you know, the mainstream public listening to this in Radio Land is going to be like, what the hell are you guys talking about? The podcast audience definitely would probably understand. But I'm always glad to have you here, and we'll talk to you in a couple nights' time.
All right, sounds good.
As we say goodnight to Josh and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Give me 2 seconds, Josh. There we go. Good show, buddy.
Yep.
Good job.
It was good.
Yeah, so to finish off my thought about what you asked me in the last half hour about the journalist.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy Corbell has done, as a journalist, I can tell you, because I do have a full-time job that I have to pay attention to in order to pay my bills. Jeremy Corbell has done some great informative work as a citizen journalist looking into this subject. Okay. And covering it. I think if I were to label him, and I hope he doesn't, if he listens to this, I hope he doesn't get offended. Whether you like Jeremy or not, he has been, in my opinion, a great advocate to bringing a lot of knowledge to this subject. He's been able to travel to Washington, D.C. numerous times to talk with political figures who have an interest in this cover-up. And I think he has been able to use his abilities and his communicative skills in order to try and make things happen within the field. That personally, I think, is commendable. Okay. George, and then having a mentor like George Knapp, who I don't give a care if you like him or not. The guy, the one thing I know about media and working in mainstream media, you don't stay at one station as a reporter slash investigative journalist for 40 plus years if you're shit at your job. Or
it's fair.
Or if you're making up stories.
Right.
Okay. That's why I find George very credible. Okay. He's not grifting. Okay. Like a lot of people say, has he written books on this subject? Sure, he has. Is he allowed to? Absolutely, he is. Absolutely. Okay. But the question is, he's got a very dogged underling in Jeremy Corbell. And those two are really the only ones working this story day by day in the United States that I can see.
Yeah.
But there is still a wonderment as to why so many so-called reporters, documentarians, journalists from outside the United States are getting all of this pertinent information allegedly out of the Pentagon through sources. Okay. How are they getting it? Is it relationships with people like Tim Burchett or Eric Burleson or Anna Paulina Luna that are dropping these stories? And if so, should they be dropping it to foreign journalists, let alone journalists themselves?
It makes me wonder if there's some loophole in how information can be shared. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, because national security is national security. It'd be less likely to share it with a foreign reporter than a U.S. based one. Maybe I don't know. It just seems like you said, it's odd as to why outside of the U.S. there's so much reporting interest. Maybe all this information would be available to those in the U.S. and just nobody wants to give it the time of day. I don't know. It's just odd.
It is odd. It is totally odd. And there's just some, how can we put it, strange understandings of what's going on. I don't know if I like it or not, but then again, that's for me. Not everybody is going to have my own opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All I can do is properly try and bridge that information the way I think our public may want to see it. Right? And go from there.
Yep. I mean, Yeah, if that's all you could do, like you said, present it.
Mhm.
I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what your show does, right? It presents
Yep.
alternative viewpoints, and it's up to the listener slash viewer to make their own determination.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they want to go in a different direction, they're more than welcome to.
Yep.
They are more than welcome to.
Yep.
So that's kind of the way it plays. But I know when I say what I said about the journalists who are following this story, I want to reiterate, I'm not picking on the journalists or telling people that they're doing a shitty job. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm saying it's very curious that foreign journalists are the ones getting the majority of the stories in this. And if I could work this show full time, like those two are, I'd be digging in there as well, man. I'd have my shovel going. Right? And at least the stories are coming out. People say, well, at least the stories are coming out, Dave. What the hell are you worried about? I'm not worried about it. I just find it curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that we'll call it terrestrial, or I don't know, somebody's gonna US based news outlets don't want to lose the access they have to government committees or things like that, and so they're not willing to risk it on potential unverifiable information that is attributed to the US government. Whereas, like, some of these other more, like foreign journalist type places, um, they don't necessarily have the same access, maybe, as the other, like New York Times or Washington Post or whatever the case would be.
And I thought about that. Okay, I can understand, even though I don't agree with it, I can understand why the WAPO or New York Times or New York Post or Chicago Tribune are not covering this story as dedicated as they would, because I know how people are, especially news directors, are the ego in this field when it comes to news directors is extremely large. And because news directors, whether it's radio, television, or newspaper, they have a shelf life for the most part.
Mhm.
Usually the shelf life of a news director is about 3 to 5 years. And it's high stress, it's good money, but it's also fatigue and burnout. And for a lot of them, they don't want to risk their reputation and their careers on chasing what they think is a lunatic story. It's not the CIA telling them what they can and cannot run, like many conspiracy theorists try and dig up. It has nothing to do with that. It is 100% egocentric and ego driven.
Well, and at the end of the day, all these places, or most of these places, exist, or rather, they stay in business by selling advertising. And despite what we might think, I don't think majority of their viewership comes from people in the UFO community. So, if it's run a story about, an army soldier getting reunited with their family dog, or run a story about, a UFO whistleblower that says that we've recovered craft, which one is likely going to draw more viewership and thus sell more advertising?
Well, in today's in today's infotainment news section, you always run a story about feelings. The days of hardcore news, for the most part, are done. Because if you look at any newscast, the first 8 minutes to 12 minutes before they go to their first commercial, that's where they shove all the hard news. And then from there, it's fluff until the bottom of the hour when they go to the weather break. Okay. Then they go more fluff stories until they get to sports. And then they have a feel-gooder at the end, because now over the last decade or so, you have to have that feel-good story, like that great reporter, I believe he's for ABC, who does those feel-good stories around the United States.
Yep.
Okay. And the guy's an incredible storyteller. In fact, even though I'm forgetting his name, I actually subscribe and follow his stories because they just are great stories. He's an incredible storyteller. But now everybody has to have that person and the newscast with. Okay. So realistically, in your day, if you're watching the evening news, you're only getting in total about 4.5 minutes of real news to 5 minutes of real news of what's going on in the world. That Walter Cronkite era of journalism. That's all you get.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're watching a local programming, take a thought of this. When's the last time you watched local programming and actually had a scene from city council?
I don't watch broadcast TV, so.
Oh, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't happen anymore, or rarely does. So on the road, that's what the segment's called. So,
well, Dave, I think I'm going to call it a night.
You get going, buddy.
And I'll talk to you all on Thursday.
Absolutely, my friend.
All right, man.
Absolutely.
Talk to you all later.
Have a great night, everybody. All right. Let's take out the wizard. For the rest of you, tomorrow night on the show, Nikkiana James is going to join us talking about strange tales in her journeys across the United States and the world, looking for cover-ups and hidden secrets all over the place. So we want to make sure that you check that out. And of course, I want to say thank you tonight to Benno ×2, Mikey ×2, Walter, and Georgie for the great super chats. Greatly appreciate your love. If you're new here, do us a favor, hit subscribe. And if you have any story ideas, tell us what you think. Hit us up on YouTube. Hit us up privately. info@spacedoutradio.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you feel. We definitely want your opinion on everything and anything. We'll talk to you soon. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. And it's going to be another great show. See you tomorrow, everybody. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.